All right, so welcome back to the TLS series. In the previous couple of videos, we covered how we can create a rule, how we can basically put in the general information of the rule just to kind of kickstart things. And then we also covered how the rule builder main canvas looked like and what kind of nodes it had. In this video and in the coming videos, we'll be covering the nested canvas and all of its nodes. And for this video specifically, I'll be covering the basic nodes. All right, so first you can see this template over here. Right? This is quite a complex use of nodes. So just to kind of explain its purpose here, this is a fully functioning rule in itself. The reason why this is used as a base template here is so that if the user wants to know where to start from, if the user wants to basically understand how they can use these nodes. For example, the user does not know how an if condition node is used, so they can basically click on this one, on this template right here, and they can see how this is being used in this logic. So here, the if condition is checking if the bands exist inside a rule config or not. And then if this condition is satisfied, then it should throw an error message that the invalid config is provided and the bands are not provided. So this is a very simple example of how an if condition can be used, and this would basically give the user an insight into how like all of these nodes are being used. So one by one, I'm going to go through the nodes in the basic nodes tab here, and then I'm going to explain them using the template here. Right, so let's start with the ternary operator. So the ternary operator is a simpler version of the if-else nodes. So here we can basically see that you have a result variable where you're storing the variable, and then you have a root condition. If that condition is satisfied, then this value will be returned, and if when this condition is not met, if it's false, then this value is returned. So let me just show you how this is used in this template here. So as you can see that this ternary operator, we have the max query range, right? And then we have our root condition, which is that if this range exists, right? And if it does, the return value should just be the actual value of the range. And if it doesn't, then the return value is just undefined. So this is a very simple example of how the ternary operator is being used. Moving on to the next node, we have the custom node, which I discussed earlier. If there is some kind of code and functionality which the user wants to add to the rule, but they don't necessarily find it easier to configure it using nodes, they can always use the custom code node and they can import their own code into it. Um, then the next is fetch from DB, which is basically a node in which you can write down your SQL query to fetch something from a DB. So you can select your DB from here. These three are the available ones, and you can basically write down your query here. You can execute and test it as well. You can use some local variables in order like to use in your query, and then you can simply save your query. So this is the query node. This is a fetch from DB node. And then we have the set variable, which I discussed earlier, so I'm going to skip this right now. Then we have our loop node, which basically iterates over an array um, or an object. So let's have a look at the loop types. So this is a finite list of loop types that we have that the user might want to use. Um, and this is the variable that we're iterating over. Um, and we are storing this in a result variable. We can find we can add some other condition that we want to add for this loop node. And this is basically how a loop node is used in our base template. So as you can see here, we are iterating over the array for exit conditions, and we're basically checking if there is sufficient history available in our database If not, then it would just exit. And there's this other loop node in which we are looking for unsuccessful transactions. So the variable for this is also checking for exit conditions. Then we have a third loop node in the same base template, which basically checks for the number of amounts. And this is the loop type here is map. And finally, the last loop node basically checks the count of matching amounts. And as you can basically surmise at this point, all of these loop nodes are very specific to the base template and what that rule is actually about. Your loop node can be very simple as well. It could just be iterating over a single array to check for something. So and that, it can be as simple as that. Okay, then we have our exit block, which I discussed earlier. We also have our throw error block, which basically contains an error message field, which the user can use to display some kind of error message. Then we have our if condition node. So the if condition node is basically to kind of set conditions and then certain outcomes for them. So the way the if condition is used in the base template is that we are checking if bands exist, and if they do in the rule config, then it should throw this error. So yeah, this is how if conditions are used. And then we have our print block, which I also discussed earlier. So this is it for the basic nodes for our nested template, nested canvas. And so in the next video, we would be exploring more of the functions, which contains the call functions, which I mentioned in the previous video. And then we would also be exploring the variables hand in hand. So that's it for this video. Thank you.